So I lived this secret life, still thinking maybe when I get about 80, then maybe that's when I'll look into religious life. I felt God calling me to become a nun when I was about 12, and I thought that is the worst thing I can ever imagine doing or being. Yeah, and it was very scary because I didn't go to a Catholic school. It wasn't a Catholic town. I didn't know a lot of sisters. You know, I had 2 great aunts who were nuns, but you know, they were all older and I wasn't around them. Maybe I might become a nun after I've traveled the world and done everything I want to do. And I always felt like I was kind of like a guitar and God was picking on me. And I would always just pray, God, please stop picking on me and leave me alone and listen to what I have to say. And then when I went off to college, I prayed to God to leave me alone. The interesting thing was that I was in college, I was living in the residence hall and surrounded by lots of people. I knew lots of people, but I felt so lonely, and because this was such a huge part of my life, and but I wasn't sharing it with anybody, and so I just felt kind of isolated in that way. So I don't feel like it was my choice. It was God's calling, and then I chose to respond to that. A friend of mine and it was on December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, and we went to Mass that evening, and it had snowed that day, so we were going to go out sledding after Mass. And before we went sledding, we went out to eat supper, and I eventually, in our conversation, was able to tell her that I was looking at becoming a nun, and she said, "Praise God that God has called you." And I said, "No, you don't understand. This is not what I want." And she said, "No, this is a real blessing." And I think from her reaction then, because she was so accepting of it, and I could then look at it a different way. Eventually I got to the point where I was praying, God, give me the courage and the boldness to act on what I feel called to, what I feel you calling me to do. So whenever I found the Ferdinand Benedictines, I thought, this is exactly what I've been looking for, and what I was already kind of aware of. I just didn't know what it was called or where it was. And then once I realized, you know, these are normal women, you know, they're just trying to live life how they're called, then I felt really at peace and really at home. And then I started sharing that with my friends and with my family. And then after that, I felt so much freedom. And you're not giving up who you are when you feel called to a religious life. You're becoming more of who you are. One of the sisters told me that we had a lot of gifted musicians and I could take any kind of music lessons I wanted. So I said, I'd like to take piano lessons. And she said, ask Sister Teresita, because she's the best. So then I asked Sister Teresita if she'd give me piano lessons. And I had brought some music with me. And so we started she started giving me lessons. And then I started taking organ lessons. And then before I knew it, I was playing for morning prayer and Mass and evening prayer within just a few months. And my experience was that I could find out, what my gifts were and then be able to use those. If you know someone and you can talk to them and you trust them, I think that's a good thing to do. Get to know the sisters here and find out, okay, they're just like me. They're just kind of trying to figure out where God's calling them. And if it's something that you feel might be your calling, then just to be open.
Thank you.